Here are 3 terrifying hitchhiker ghost stories. Every driver has a story about the road. The quiet miles, the flashing headlights, the feeling that something's out there. But tonight, you'll hear the ones that never make it into police reports. These are the whispers from the roadside, the voices that fade with the static on your radio, the moments when the line between the living and the lost begins to blur. Tonight we bring you 3 terrifying hitchhiker ghost stories, tales of vanishing passengers, fading signals, and silent riders who never made it home. So lock your doors, turn down the lights, and keep your eyes on the rearview mirror. Because after this, you'll never drive alone again.
Rain slashed the windshield like claws. Mark's headlights barely pierced the dark, winding highway, a lonely stretch where towns were ghosts themselves. Exhausted from his warehouse shift, he gripped the wheel, fighting the urge to close his eyes. Then he saw her, a woman by the road, thumb out, soaked in a pale dress that clung like a second skin. No coat, no bag, standing there, unmoving. He slowed, heart thudding. Who hitchhikes in a storm? He pulled over, gravel crunching. She slid into the passenger seat, water dripping from her dark hair. "Thanks," she whispered, voice soft as a sigh. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, caught the dashboard glow. "Where to?" Mark asked, forcing calm. "The old bridge," she said, staring ahead. Mark nodded, easing back onto the road. The rain hammered harder, turning the world blurry. He glanced at her, pretty, fragile, but wrong. No shiver, no breath fogging the window. Just a faint smell, like wet earth and wilted flowers. "I'm Mark," he said, breaking the silence. The radio crackled dead. "Emily," she murmured. Not many stop anymore. The woods pressed in, trees like skeletal fingers. Mark's mind flicked to old stories, phantom hitchhikers, doomed souls luring drivers to their fate. He shook it off, just tired. But the air grew heavy, the car colder. He hummed a tune, low and eerie, like a warped lullaby. His skin prickled. "I was going to a party," she said, years ago. The bridge collapsed. Rain like this. The water took me. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. Mark's stomach twisted. The mill bridge. That was the 90s. A girl drowned there. "They never found me," she said. He forced a laugh. Her eyes locked on his, unblinking. The bridge loomed ahead, a rusted skeleton over a churning black river. "Stop here," she said, voice sharp. Before he could argue, she stepped out and vanished into the dark. Mark's flashlight found no footprints, no trace. The passenger seat was dry. Shaking, he sped off, heart hammering. Ghost stories, he told himself. Exhaustion. But the radio flickered. Anniversary of the Millbridge tragedy. Emily Hargrove, drowned at 24. He switched it off, hands trembling. At home he scoured the internet. Photo loaded. Emily, pale dress, those same eyes. Victim lost in flood. A knock at the door. No one through the peephole. On the mat, a wet envelope with his name. Inside, a faded photo. With a woman in that dress, his mother Sarah. But the articles called her Emily. His dad's old lies unraveled. She didn't die in a car crash. She was the girl in the river. The phone rang. "Hello?" Static, then a whisper. "Be careful, Mark." The line died. Lights flickered out. In the window's reflection, she stood behind him, hand outstretched. Mark bolted to his car, the lullaby humming from the radio. In the rear view, a shadow shifted, pale dress, dark hair. "To the bridge," she whispered. He screamed, but the road pulled him forward, toward the river. The truth hit. Emily was his mother, calling him back to the night she vanished. The bridge appeared, guardrail rusted. Tires slipped. Metal screeched as the car plunged into the black water. Cold rushed in, and her face smiled through the dark, welcoming. Now, on rainy nights, drivers see 2 figures on that road. A man and a woman, thumbs out, waiting in the storm.
The rain came down in sheets, turning Old Mill Road into a glistening ribbon of black that stretched endlessly into the night. Carla Monroe gripped the steering wheel of her beat-up sedan, her eyes straining through the fog that clung to the windshield like a living thing. It was past midnight and she was late for her shift at WKNX, the small-town radio station where she hosted Midnight Waves, a show for insomniacs and truckers. The road was desolate, flanked by skeletal trees that swayed in the storm's fury. Then, through the haze, she saw it. A figure standing by the roadside, arm outstretched in a desperate hitchhiking gesture. The silhouette was barely human, distorted by the rain and the weak glow of her headlights. Carla's heart thudded. She knew the stories about Old Mill Road, whispers of ghosts and vanishings, but she was a skeptic, a woman of logic. Still, something about the figure's stillness made her skin prickle. Carla slowed the car, her journalist's curiosity battling the unease creeping up her spine. She flicked on the interior light, casting a dim glow over the empty passenger seat. "Don't be stupid," she muttered to herself, pulling over onto the gravel shoulder. The figure approached, moving with an odd, fluid grace, as if gliding through the rain. The passenger door creaked open, and a young man slid in, his denim jacket soaked through, water pooling on the floor mat. He was pale, almost translucent, with dark circles under his eyes that seemed to swallow the light. His hair, plastered to his forehead, was a shade of brown that reminded Carla of wet earth. He didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. "Where you headed?" Carla asked, forcing a smile to mask her nerves. The man didn't answer, only muttered, "Keep driving." His voice was low, almost lost in the patter of rain against the roof. Carla shifted into gear, the car lurching forward. The silence between them grew heavy, oppressive, broken only by the rhythmic swipe of the wipers. She tried again. "Bad night to be out here. You got a name?" No response. The man's hands rested in his lap, clutching a crumpled piece of paper, a map, its edges frayed and curling. Carla glanced at it, catching a glimpse of a red circle scrawled around a spot labeled Miller's Bridge. Her stomach twisted. That bridge was just a few miles ahead, notorious for its sharp curve and crumbling guardrail. She'd driven over it countless times, but tonight the thought of it made her palms sweat. The car's radio, tuned to WKNX, crackled to life, interrupting her pre-recorded show. Static hissed through the speakers, and then faintly a voice, not hers, whispered, "Carla." She froze, her name hanging in the air like a cold breath. She jabbed the power button, but the radio stayed on, the static growing louder, spitting fragmented words. "Accident. Miller's Bridge. Never found." The dashboard clock flickered, its digital numbers frozen at 2:13 a.m. Carla's heart raced. She stole another glance at the hitchhiker. His eyes, now locked on her, were impossibly deep, like twin voids that swallowed the light. The map in his hands trembled slightly, and she saw the red circle pulse, as if drawn in fresh ink. "You okay?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer, but his lips moved, forming words she couldn't hear. The air in the car grew colder, the heater sputtering as frost crept across the edges of the windshield. Carla's breath came in shallow puffs, visible in the dim light. She tightened her grip on the wheel, focusing on the road. The fog thickened, wrapping the car in a cocoon of gray. The hitchhiker's presence felt like a weight pressing against her chest, making it hard to breathe. She wanted to pull over, to demand answers, but the road seemed to stretch endlessly, the bridge drawing closer with every second. The sign for Miller's Bridge loomed out of the fog, its faded letters barely legible. Carla's pulse pounded in her ears as the hitchhiker suddenly lunged, his cold hand grabbing the wheel. "Stop!" he rasped, his voice like gravel. Carla screamed, yanking the wheel back, but the car fishtailed, tires screeching on the wet asphalt. She slammed on the brakes, the sedan skidding to a stop just feet from the bridge's rusted guardrail. Her chest heaved as she turned to the passenger seat, ready to shout, but it was empty. The hitchhiker was gone, the door still closed, the seat dry except for the crumpled map. Carla's hands shook as she picked it up. The red circle was gone, replaced by a single word scrawled in jagged red letters: stop. The radio blared to life again, no longer static but a clear, archived broadcast. A news anchor's voice, clipped and somber, filled the car. Tragedy on Old Mill Road tonight. A young man identified as Daniel Harper lost control at Miller's Bridge, his car plunging into the river below. Search teams have found no trace of the body. Carla's blood ran cold. She knew that name, that story. It was a local legend, a cautionary tale told at diners and gas stations. Daniel Harper, barely 20, had died on this road 30 years ago. The broadcast continued, but the anchor's voice shifted, morphing into Carla's own. "Don't cross the bridge, Carla," it pleaded. "Don't cross." She stumbled out of the car, the rain soaking her instantly. The bridge stretched into the fog, its far end invisible. In the distance, she thought she saw a figure standing at the edge, motionless, before it dissolved into the mist. Her knees buckled, and she clutched the map, its paper now brittle, as if it had aged decades in moments. The word "stop" seemed to burn under her fingertips. Carla didn't cross the bridge that night. She turned the car around, driving to the nearest gas station, a flickering neon oasis called Joe's Stop. Inside, she collapsed into a booth, the map still clutched in her hand. The old clerk, Joe himself, noticed her trembling and brought her a coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, half joking. Carla told him everything, her voice shaking as she recounted the hitchhiker, the radio, the map. Joe's face grew serious, his eyes narrowing. "That's the signal," he said. "Folks around here have seen him for years, always near that bridge, always trying to stop people. Some say he's Daniel Harper, stuck in time, saving others from his fate." Carla returned to WKNX the next night, her nerves still raw. She shared the story on Midnight Waves, her voice trembling as she described the hitchhiker's eyes, the map, the voice on the radio. Calls flooded in, truckers, locals, even skeptics, all with their own tales of the signal. One caller, an elderly woman, claimed Daniel had been her brother, always reckless, always protective. "He'd never let anyone else get hurt," she said before the line went dead. As Carla signed off, the studio lights flickered and the clock froze at 2:13 a.m. The radio hissed, and a faint whisper cut through the static. "Thank you." She never saw the hitchhiker again, but every time she drove Old Mill Road, she avoided Miller's Bridge, taking the long way around. The map stayed in her glove box, a reminder that some roads hold more than just asphalt and fog. They hold warnings, etched in red.
The desert highway stretched like a scar under the moonless Arizona sky, where stars hid behind a shroud of storm clouds. Sarah's pickup rattled along, the only sound besides the wind howling through cracked windows. After a late shift at the diner, her eyes ached, the road blurring into a hypnotic black ribbon. Then, in the flicker of her high beams, she saw him, a man by the roadside, thumb out, standing rigid in a tattered jacket. No car, no bag, just him, face shadowed, unmoving despite the gusts kicking up dust. Sarah slowed, pulse quickening. Hitchhikers weren't common out here, where coyotes outnumbered people. She pulled over, tires crunching on gravel. The man opened the door and slid in, bringing a chill that cut through the desert heat. "Thanks," he said, voice low, like gravel grinding. His eyes, barely visible under a worn cap, glinted like wet stones. "Where you headed?" Sarah asked, gripping the wheel. "The canyon turnoff," he said, staring at the road. "Near the old mine." Sarah nodded, easing back onto the highway. Rain began to spit, smearing the windshield with streaks of red dust. She glanced at him, lean, weathered, maybe 40, with hands scarred and still, resting on his knees. No water dripped from him, though the storm was picking up. A faint smell crept in, like damp stone and something metallic like old blood. "I'm Sarah," she said,
voice shaky, trying to fill the silence. The radio hissed, stuck on static. "James," he replied, barely audible. "Folks don't stop much anymore." The desert loomed, cacti like twisted sentinels in the dark. Sarah's mind snagged on local legends, ghostly hitchhikers, miners lost in collapses, haunting these roads. She pushed the thought away, blaming the late hour. But the cab felt smaller, the air thick, her breath visible in the sudden cold. James began to whistle, a low, mournful tune that echoed like wind through a tunnel. Her skin crawled, the sound burrowing into her bones. "Where were you coming from?" she asked, knuckles white. "Work," he said, turning slightly. His face caught the dashboard light, gaunt, eyes sunken, lips cracked. "The mine. Shift went late. Always does." He paused, then added, "You ever feel like you're running out of time?" Her stomach churned. "The mine's been closed since the 80s. Cave-in, right? Killed a bunch of workers." James nodded, his whistle fading. "They never dug us out." His voice was flat, like he was stating the weather. Sarah forced a laugh, heart pounding. "Nice one. You're pulling my leg." He tilted his head, eyes locking on hers, unblinking. "Am I?" The dashboard flickered, the speedometer needle jerking wildly. Outside, the rain thickened, but the road seemed to stretch longer, the canyon turnoff nowhere in sight. She pressed the gas, the engine whining. But the truck felt sluggish, as if weighed down by something unseen. The turnoff appeared, a dirt path veering toward a gash in the earth where the mine's entrance yawned, long abandoned. "Here," James said, voice sharp as a pickaxe. Before Sarah could respond, he opened the door and stepped out, vanishing into the storm like dust scattered by the wind. She grabbed her flashlight, beam cutting through the rain. No footprints, no sign of him. The passenger seat was dry, but the metallic smell lingered, sharp and nauseating. Sarah sped off, heart hammering, the mine fading in her rear view. Just a creep, she told herself, but her hands shook. The radio crackled to life. Anniversary of the 1983 Red Canyon mine collapse. James Teller, 42, among the trapped. She slammed the power button, breath ragged. At her trailer, she locked the door, lights blazing, and searched online. An old article loaded, a grainy photo of James, same jacket, same sunken eyes. Miners presumed dead after cave-in. A knock rattled the door. No one through the peephole. On the step, a rusted miner's tag engraved, James Teller, shift lead. Tucked beneath it, a crumpled photo. Her father, young in a miner's helmet, arm around James. Her dad, who'd quit the mine a week before the collapse, never spoke of it, but his guilt hung heavy, a shadow in their home. The phone rang. "Hello?" Static roared, then a gravelly whisper, "You shouldn't have stopped, Sarah." The line went dead. The trailer's lights flickered, plunging her into darkness. The air turned icy, thick with that metallic tang. In the mirror, James stood behind her, cap low, eyes glinting, a pickaxe dangling from his scarred hand. Sarah stumbled to her truck, the whistle echoing from the radio, relentless. In the rear view, a shadow shifted. Tattered jacket, glinting eyes. "To the mine," James rasped, his voice inside her head. She screamed, but the road pulled her back toward the canyon. The truth sank in like a stone. James wasn't just a ghost. He was her father's friend, left behind in the collapse, his spirit tied to her family's guilt, summoning her to the place he died. The turnoff loomed, the mine's black mouth gaping. The truck lurched, tires slipping on mud. Sarah fought the wheel, but it turned as if guided, veering toward the entrance. Metal groaned as the truck scraped rock, tumbling into the shaft. Darkness swallowed her, the air heavy with damp stone and blood. James's face flickered in the gloom, his hand outstretched, pulling her into the earth. Now, on stormy desert nights, drivers see two figures by that highway. A woman and a man, thumbs out, faces shadowed, waiting by the canyon's edge.
If you've made it this far, maybe you've felt it too. That cold breath on the back of your neck when the road goes quiet. That sense that someone's still riding with you. The stories you heard tonight are more than legends. They're reminders that sometimes the most ordinary drives can take a turn into the unknown. If you enjoyed these stories and you want to travel deeper into the haunted highways and ghostly places of the world, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and join me every Friday for more chilling encounters from beyond the veil. Until next time, keep your headlights on, your doors locked, and never ever stop for the hitchhiker who's already waiting.